If this is the first video you're watching on this research project, here's a quick recap. Title keeps changing. Now it's essentially I'm making short films, narrative short films, both for traditional cinema and for like head-mounted displays, and I'm going to test it on audiences, how the emotional engagement changes when you remove the frame. And after having made 6 or 8 short films, depending on how you count, we're going to say 6, there's like a theme forming, shall we say. Since last time I made 3 more short films, trying to follow the rules that was laid out in the last video. Made a comedy where 3 girls are arguing. I co-wrote, co-directed, and co-edited a short film with Michelle Collins about 2 people meeting at a party and having a romantic moment. And it's just trying to do what we did with the previous short film, At a Loss, where you're stringing together evocative images and that tells the story. No dialogue whatsoever. And it made an action short film inside a caravan because, you know, small confined space and all. This kind of filmmaking needs to function in those kind of spaces too, if it is going to function. Spoiler alert, it does not. In all 3 films, they work really well in the framed version, and the comedy functions in the frameless version, but it's not better. Because, and this is the conclusion I have from the 6 short films that we've made so far. Once you remove the frame, the image becomes a space. I'm going to read to you from my notes, actually. An image can be read. A space is merely inhabited and cannot be used as a storytelling device the way a sequence of images can. So basically I was wrong. The more image does not mean more emotion. Because a narrative implies a storyteller. You know, visual storytelling, and a storyteller has a point of view. That's where the whole, you know, composition, camera, movement, angle, editing, all of that is storytelling devices. But when there's in the romantic scene, there is a scene where 2 people kiss, and when you're watching it in the framed version, you are sharing the moment with them. And once you remove the frame, you're sitting at the edge of the bed just staring at them as they kiss. In narrative storytelling, there's a point of view on the story. But once you remove the frame, it manifests a point of view in space, because your brain just will not let you read the image. It just interprets it as you being inside the space. So where you can lose yourself in traditional cinema in the story, you're so manifested, so embodied inside the image that you can't. You are there witnessing the events. You're not experiencing the events along with the narration or the main characters, depending on which theory you read. I think it's both. You can both identify with the camera and the main character, or several characters at the same time. Anyway, this is not a theory video. Anyway, so removing the frame disables the art of emphasis, where the images tells you the story. Of the 3 short films, like the action just straight up does not work in frameless. It's confusing to look at. The quick editing does not work well in frameless. It's jarring. So on top of the action just being confusing, the quick editing is also confusing. The romantic one, where we've added sparks and bubbles and stuff to the image to keep trying to make it more and more of an artistic image. The grade is very pushed towards not reality, and the lighting is very pink, and like all of this is just rejected by your brain, and I even went back to the funny one, the argument between the girls, and regraded it for frameless, so it is neutral as possible, and then you accept it more. But still, you're still just standing there and looking at some people. You're not feeling the story. You're not part of the story. You're just inside the space. So this means I have to give up 1/3 of my project, which was to merge the language of film with frameless and find a new golden ground. Basically, there's a reason frameless is either shot for VR 180 or for VR 360. Just other people haven't made videos about this like it. So now you don't have to, because I'm telling you and showing you. I will release all these films later. Anyway, so going forward, I will be filming VR 180 of lenses that see 180 degrees of the scene that I'm in, and I have to stop thinking in images and I have to start thinking in situations. I have to reinvent the story for frameless. It's a completely different medium. It just is not the same at all. Yeah. There's a couple of ideas I have coming up. So I'm going to do another argument between 3 people. But with one version, I'm just going to plonk the viewer as a 4th person at the edge of the table. And then cover the crap out of it for framed. And basically just shooting. Up to this point, I've been shooting every image like twice. So, here's the framed version, here's the frameless version. I have to completely stop that. Now there's a shot list for the framed version and a completely different shot list, which will be much more long takes and just playing into the embodiedness of frameless. That's a word, I guess. Frameless means you feel less, which sucks. So the question is, basically, here's another quote for you. I'm full of quotes today. Visual immersion happens at the cost of emotional immersion when you remove the frame. Did I say that frameless feels like you're witnessing instead of experiencing? I should have. That's probably one of the most succinct ways of saying it. Yeah, so quick recap. I made a comedy that's funny when it has a frame and not so funny when it doesn't have a frame. We made a romance that's romantic when it has a frame and just a little bit creepy when you remove the frame. And we made an action short film that's brutal and gnarly when it has a frame and just confusing and slightly disappointing when it doesn't have a frame. In the fact that I'm switching to different lenses, now I'm going to a 10mm fisheye lens for full frame that sees 180 degrees point of view. We've done some quick tests, and by doing that, now you can do 2 shots and even 3 shots again, because you have so much space to move your head that this empty space in between doesn't push you towards the black edges. Because in all 3 of the short films I've talked about now, in one instance or another, you end up moving your head so much that you see the black frame, even when I'm formatting at 4180 in head-mounted display. So you should, in theory, but it needs to be really center framed with as much more peripheral view than you think that you need. The only 2 things I'm sticking with so far that I'm removing is I'm not doing 3D and I'm not doing 60 frames per second. If you want to know why I'm not doing 60 frames per second, well, if you ever saw The Hobbit in 3D, you already know. And if not, I suggest checking out Media Division's video that I put down in the bottom. He shows you a clip and then directs you to a 60 frame version of it, and your brain just melts. Now that I have this one, I've watched all the Apple immersive content that I could find, and the one narrative short film they have on there, It's shot in 60 frames per second or more. It could be more. It could be 90. I should read up on that. And I really don't like it. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, the narrative short film itself struggles with many of the same problems that mine do. Things being filmed up too close and just feeling a bit off. But it's there's a button you can push that removes the frame, and you're watching it with a frame. It's still just 3D and 60 frames per second. And I'm pretty sure it's the 60 frames per second that I dislike the most of it. Because when you remove the frame, you get really nice close-ups, and it's beautifully shot. But the high frame rate, my brain just screams and runs away and goes, "This is uncanny valley!" Yeah. So, yeah. So that's what we're doing next weekend. We're shooting a horror movie in VR 180, and then I'm planning another argument. And because I refuse to go, I'm stubborn. I think I might be stubborn. My wife is nodding. I want to do one more go at visual storytelling, but with VR 180. I really want it to work. I don't think it will, for all the reasons I just said. But the fact of the matter is, if I can't do visual storytelling, I'm just never going to choose frameless filmmaking as my medium of choice. Anyway, next time, see you then. Ooh, and by the way, at this point, I may or may not have passed my first milestone called the application for registration that I talked about before. But I don't know, because I had to resubmit it. I didn't pass it the first time. But I'm supposed to get an email today about whether or not I passed. So if I did, it will say here that I did. And if I didn't, well, then I'm kicked out of the program, so this video will never get posted. Anyway, bye-bye.
Vet du hele dagen? Jeg klarer ikke mer!